Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another photography review show. I hope you had a great week, and I hope you're ready for more photography reviews. Anyway, today, live from very rainy and moody United Kingdom, we are about to start. So, if there is anyone who's watching live, please make sure that you use the chat wherever you are on YouTube or Facebook or our Facebook Academy. Just say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. It would be great to just get some interaction between all of us. If you're watching in a replay, thank you so much for coming back. And let's just go through what we're gonna do. So, photography review show live. What I do is I always get the list of photos from our photographers who share with me their images, and I give them feedback on their photos. I always try to look at three aspects of the images. One is the technical part. I look at the camera setting, see if there is something I would do differently there. Then I zoom in, look at the sharpness, the brightness, the exposure, just see how well they did there. And then I look at the artistic part of the image. That's the part where I look at the composition and the overall feel of the subject, any of the composition rules being used, and kind of look at the overall impact of the image. To finish it off with the third part, I always like to look at the image and see if there are maybe things I would do differently, and give you a few tips and tricks on how you could edit your images in the future. At the moment, we're using Luminar Neo for the editing, following the fact that we've been doing lots of stuff around Luminar Neo over the past year. It's a lot of fun because you also get to see something a little bit different. So I hope you're gonna enjoy it. Now, before we're gonna start, let's just quickly say, for those who never been here before, my name is Jakub. I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. And if you want to join us for one of the future episodes of the photography review show, to do that, you need to join our membership. The membership is called Clever Photographer Plus. And if you join us for a little monthly fee, not only that you get access to the photography review show, where every week I will give you feedback on your photos, but you will also get a full bundle of digital tools. It usually has over 300 different digital assets, including skies, overlays, textures, presets, LUTs, anything you can imagine, brushes, custom brushes, lots of different things, and it's always bundled in a certain theme. So, for example, now in March, we have the wedding photography theme, so it's a lots of fun. Last month in February, we were looking at the seascape photography, and then every month like that, we look at the different themes. So you get a lots of different assets that you can use on all your future projects. The bundle is completely 100% compatible with Photoshop, and then partly with Lightroom. Over 200 of the digital assets are also compatible with Luminar Neo. So if you're a Luminar Neo user, you will get huge bunch of products there, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, that is all out of the way. Once again, if you're watching us live anywhere around the social media accounts, make sure you write us in the comments, say hello. If you have any questions regarding your images, if you want to tell me anything about one of the images, if it's maybe yours, or if you have a question on how to use Luminar Neo, I'm here for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. So what we have today, we have a lots of landscape photographers, and for today specifically, I ask the photographers to also try and include at least one raw file with their submission, so I can maybe try to go ahead and edit it for them. So let's start right away from the beginning, and I have pictures from Caroline. Caroline, 4 photos, so that's a lot of pictures to go through. So let's just very quickly go through them, and then I will pick 2, which I'm gonna focus on. So let's zoom in. Start from here. So all of them have a certain theme. It's very much like a cityscape mixed with water, river, lots of reflection, blue hour, except this one, beautiful, beautiful captures. So this right here is very lovely capture with a great reflection, lovely glow, also texture in the sky. Really like this one. This one, obviously, super full on with beautiful reflection again. It's really very, very busy, but again, beautiful capture, a great, great story there. This I love. That's beautiful. I also love the stars around these lights on the bridges. I think that works super well. So we definitely look at this one. And then we have this picture right here, which is also beautiful. I love the reflection of the tower. Also, the sky is great. The mood is very, very pretty. So all of them very well done. So what we're going to look at? So I think let's look at one blue hour capture. So let's say that we're going to look at the bridge, and then one almost kind of daylight capture, which is right here. So, okay, let's zoom in. So you can see what I am doing, and we're gonna start from here. So let's start with the bridge, zoom in and start by looking at it. So this was captured with the Canon 5D Mark IV with the lens 24 to 70 millimeters f2.8. Now, looking at the camera settings, we are on ISO 100, 24 millimeters and f11. The exposure is 93 seconds, so well done there. And looking at the camera settings, everything looks good to me. ISO 100, spot on, making sure that we don't introduce any additional noise to your images. 24 millimeters is probably one of my favorite lens or wide lens, because I think with the 24, everything kind of remain quiet, natural, and not too distorted. So well done there. F11, great, making sure that we get the details all the way. Plus, we also get this lovely stars, so that looks great as well. And 93 seconds is a long exposure, but what I really like is that mostly looking at it from this point of view, it looks like we still have the details even through the bright areas. And that's the key here. With this really long exposure in this condition, you want to time it well, that you get everything you're looking for, but you don't overexpose it and get completely burned out spots. So technically, well done there. You can see immediately that there are lots of details here. The texture works very well. Once again, no noise. There's a little bit of sensor dust and few spots here, which actually can be super easily removed here in Luminar Neo. So I will show you that in a moment. But in overall, it's a great picture, Caroline. Love it. Beautiful, beautiful. The star, great. Moving on the artistic part, talking about artistic part of the image, the composition is great. A really lovely entry into the image with the bridge. Lovely lights here, the beautiful long exposure and trails of the light here with the cars and bikes work super well as well. Yeah, lots of lovely details. It's a really nice scene, which really set certain mood. Just think it works. I think it's very, very good. If I would have to be super picky, I would have wished that you would get some kind of texture in the sky, but I think still in overall, it's a great capture. Moving on the picture number 2. What did I do here? Right here. We looking at the image, which is more kind of daylight capture. Again, looking at your camera details. Again, Canon 5D Mark IV with the ISO 100, 57 millimeters, f11 and 1/15 of a second. So ISO again, spot on, 57 millimeter, nicely kind of zoom in, which works a little bit, which works on this picture quite well. F11, again, great f-stop to make sure that we have the details all the way from the tower to the front of the image. 1/15 of a second obviously doesn't give you that super long exposure on the river, but in this case with the boats it maybe wouldn't work that well anyway. So in overall it's actually very well handled. Technically, when it comes to setting, it works very well. Looking around, great level of details and texture as well. So very well done there. Now looking into the sky, it almost seems like maybe you have done some adjustments here, maybe sky replacement, I'm not sure. But you can see a little bit of artifacts on the top of the tower. So that's something just to keep an eye on. You can kind of see it a little bit on the top, but the rest works very well. The sky works. I think it's a great choice to put it there. However, just keep an eye on the top to try to avoid this bit here. If you're using Luminar Neo, there are certain settings in the masking you could do. If you're using Photoshop, there are different approaches there as well. However, still in overall, the message feels very good to me. So I think technically, other than maybe the top of the tower, I think it's very well done. And talking about composition and the artistic feel of the image, I think it works really well. If you've been watching some of my reviews before, I'm a big fan of reflection. So this really works very well. I think it adds depth, it adds a story. And even though it's a little bit wrinkled, it's not like 100% reflection, I just think it works super well. The depth is great here as well, really together in a combination with the leading line of the tower and the river, it just works. So this is great. Really powerful message, really powerful composition, and an overall great capture. So we're gonna look at how we could edit any of it. So we were talking first about this image right here, but before we're gonna do that, just quickly for Patrick, if you're watching us, I believe you're watching us on a YouTube. Greetings, good evening. I have your images and I will be looking at them soon. So I hope you're doing well. I will talk to you soon. So yes, I can see the messages on the application here. If you have anything, please let me know. Moving on, Caroline, we were talking about your picture and some of the sensor dust here. Now, it's not 100% visible, but when I zoom in, maybe you can see it. It's right here and right here. And actually here in Luminar Neo, it's really easy to remove them. All you need to do is to take the image, move it into edit module. And in the edit module, you would go in the essential tools here. And in the essential tools, there is a tool called erase. So you click on that. And then at the bottom, you will see object removal. Here, all you need to do is to click on remove dust spots. So you click on that and it will take a moment. It actually scans the image and it removes all the dust spots. So it's actually already done. Now we zoom to the spot where they used to be. Let's have a look here. And let me show you the before. And you can see them right down here, actually. If I zoom in maybe even further, let me show you. Before, they're appearing here. Before and after. So really cool, really fast way to get a reduce of your dust spots. So in overall, this is what I would do here. Moving on to what else I would do to this image. You could try to replace the sky. I know it's a little bit complicated, but let's have a look. If we jump into the Sky AI and maybe have a look at the blue hour skies. Do we have any blue hour? Let's have a look. Blue hour. Let's see if we could try to replace it with this one maybe. It's gonna take a second. It scans the image and then it should give us something a little bit different. There you have it. So you could maybe try to replace the sky on this one as well, and you would get a little bit more texture in the sky. If you would want, looking at the image, you could make it a little bit darker by using the brightness slider, and then just in a scenery light, just bring some of the scenery light and the light saturation and do something like this. So two things we tried, and I think it works really well, is to try to replace the completely blue sky from the start. And the second thing, we remove some of the sensor dust. So Caroline, thank you very much. Both of them great images. All four are great images. So thank you for sharing them with us. And we're gonna move on. Now, first, I need to somehow remove what I've done here earlier. So let me just quickly fix this 1 second. File request. Just give me 1 quick second. Because the images of the train are from Greg. So Greg, how did I manage to? There we go. Good. So we are all set. We can continue. Anyway, before we're going to continue, quick message from Patrick. He has graduated from Serge Ramelli Institute. How to write it? Congratulations, Patrick. Well done on that. I actually have graduated. No, it wasn't exactly institute, but it was a similar program from Serge maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And it was a great fun. I learned a lot through that process. So I know that it's not easy, but still, congratulations, well done. And I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed doing that, because I have a few friends who done it and they always speak very nicely about it. So Caroline, we done your pictures. We moving on the image from Ed. Ed, moving on, looking at your image this week, let's just quickly see what we are looking at. Ed, this should be, if I am right, Bentonite Hills in United States. Now, looking at the camera, we don't have it's a Panasonic DCFZ82 with the camera setting ISO 80, 14.8 millimeters, f4.5, and 1/500 of a second. Now, when it comes to camera settings, ISO down, that's good. 14.8 millimeters is super wide, but it works in this case. F4.5, very good too. 1/500 of a second is really fast shutter speed, but again, in this condition, it works probably quite well. Ed, I've seen multiple images from you in the past similar to this. They are very pretty. They are all very kind of science fiction like, very abstract. They always, it's funny because I look at them and my imagination really goes a lot, because it's a different textures, colors, and I think it all works very nicely together. Now, when I zoom in, the sharpness isn't spot on. I wish it would be a little bit sharper, and I can see a little bit of noise as well, which is a little strange with the 80 ISO, but maybe it's the camera which gives the noise to it. So don't worry too much about it. In your case, it's more about the overall feeling, so the overall feel of the image, which I think here really creates certain feel, and I think it works very well. So thank you very much for sharing it with us. What I would do with your images, maybe in an edit module, I would just go into the develop tool and just bring the highlights down a little bit, because I think they are just a little bit strong, and maybe add a little bit of contrast. That's about it. Nothing crazy. Just those two to fix the images and see where you can take it from there. So thank you very much for sharing this, Ed, with us, and I hope to see more of your images in the future. Moving on to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, we have two images from you this week, so let's jump straight to them. We have this beautiful capture right here and another landscape here. So starting with the first one, looking at the camera and lens, this is Canon RP with the Tamron 28-300. The camera settings, ISO 100, 41 millimeters, f11, 1/250 of a second. ISO 100, spot on. Making sure again that we don't add any additional noise. 41 millimeters, good. F11, making sure that we have a sharpness all the way through. So I think that works very well too. 1/250th of a second on the shutter speed, whatever was needed. Nothing look overexposed, so it all works very well together. Now, when I zoom in, there's a lots of texture, lots of details, so the sharpness looks really good. Now I see again, this is something what I talked about in last week in the video I was making for you. It's just this something to do with the exposure of your images. I can see really lots of banding in your sky, so something maybe to look at for the future. But other than that, it's looking all good. Now the light is a little bit contrasty, but there are no heavy shadows here, so I think that works very well too. So technically, really good, really good. Now moving on to composition, moving and talking about the artistic part of the image. Now there is a lots of colors, lots of things happening here, and my first look at it, I'm not 100% sure what I'm looking at. Now there are some rocks, there is this really heavy blue sky, lots of colors. One thing I wish there was something that would help me to get a sense of scale, just to help us to understand what kind of size of this capture we're looking at. Sometimes it can be a person, old house, car, bike, anything that the brain manages to put together. So you would, for example, see a car. Car is an example, but you could have a car here, and immediately we would know how big are these rocks, or it could be a person walking, or anything, or just included in a foreground. That would be just one thing I would look for in a future. Moving on this image, talking about again camera settings, and we had the same camera, same lens, and the camera settings are ISO 100, 28 millimeters, f14, 125th of a second. Now, talking about the ISO, again, 100, spot on, 28 millimeter, nice wide lens here, f14, again, like I said in the past episodes, f7.1 to f11 would be my main to go, unless I'm trying to create some additional special effect. I really never go above f16. F14 is about as high I go, because when you go really high with your f-stop, you start to lose the sharpness, and sometimes you get this kind of painterly effect, so keep an eye on that. 125th of a second is a good shutter speed, giving us this beautiful view. Now, when I zoom in, there's a great sharpness here, which helps texture again, the focus all the way through. So altogether, very well done. So technically, I think very good. Now, when we move into the composition artistic part, I think the foreground, all the trees and the forest is quite natural. It's this part here where it just gets really, really saturated and blue. So we're going to look at this. But still talking about composition, I think it works even a little bit better than the first image. And the reason being that we have this really nice balance. We have this really nice view through the valley, which helps us with the depth. The rock is beautiful, so I think that works well. The sky and the texture works very well here too. So in overall, it's a lovely, lovely image. It just needs a little bit of work with the color, white balance, and so on. So let's work on that now. Let's bring it into edit module. Inside of the edit module, what I would do first, I would go into the color tool and use the remove color cast, if that can help us a little bit, but it doesn't help crazily. So after that, let's go into the HSL panel, and then we start in the saturation here and bring down the blue a little bit. So just to make it a little bit more natural. Then with the green, I would also bring it down just a little, and more than unsaturating it, I would go into the hue, and here in the green, I would bring it more on a warm side, just to make it a little more natural. Now with the blue, since we here, can we help to it one way or the other? Not really. Cyan, maybe make it more blue. No, that doesn't help there. So that's fine. We will take care of that in a moment. Back to the saturation, maybe remove a little bit of the cyan, a little bit of the blue, and a little bit of the purple. After this, we can close the color section and go into the develop tool. In the develop tool, we can go into the color and just add a little bit of temperature, and definitely add a little bit of tint, just to remove the overall green bit. Now let me show you before, and keep an eye on the mountain and the sky. And after, we're already getting there, step by step, much better. Now we still need to do a little bit with the sky. So let's close the develop tool, open it again, and now increase the temperature and now we're focusing only on the sky. Let's have a look, maybe something like this and something like this. Maybe bring down the saturation a little bit to somewhere around here, and I think we look much better. Maybe a little extra temperature. And now we're going to go into the masking. Mask AI, it's going to scan the image, and it will give us a choice of what we can select. So what we're going to do after that, we're just going to select the sky, which should then apply whatever we dialed in just into the sky. There you have it. So before and after. So then in overall, when we look at it before and after, I think it looks much better. To finish it off, we can go into the enhance AI, increase the accent. We can also maybe apply some additional vignette and take it from there. So I think this is a little bit better. Keep an eye on the white balance. That's something what we have had a look in last episode as well. Just kind of making sure that you don't get too much blue, too much green, and so on in your images. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for sending the pictures over. They are both very, very nice. Thank you for participating, and I hope to see more images from you in the future. Moving on to the next photographer. So we have a Greg. Greg, I got your images. I got the 2 raw files plus this image right here. Now, I have a feeling I already seen this image before. Let's have a look. Not here. Greg, I already had a look at this picture here. So let's just see if it's the same capture. 1 and 2. Maybe this one is a little bit wider. So I already talked about that one. So if you want to see feedback for this image, you go back on the episode of the 13th of February. So now we're going to focus on the two images you send me, and I will definitely edit one of them. So actually, I already applied a few adjustments to them. And what I did, Greg, was I took the image, which I assume is captured by a drone, and then I have sent it through Topaz denoise and Topaz sharpening. Because as it was created by a drone, it had a fair bit of noise on it, and it needed a little bit of extra sharpening. So as far as I know, if I just hover over this is already the final result I got once I send it through noise reduction and sharpening, and now we can try to edit it here in Luminar Neo. So let's do that. We're going to move it into edit module, and the first thing I would do, I would jump into the crop AI and then to 1609, which I really like, and it's already on 1609, and we're just going to focus more on the train. So somewhere around here, something maybe like this. Maybe like this. Once I'm happy, I just hit enter. Maybe I want to go even lower, somewhere around here. And that would be my initial crop. After this, I would go into the develop raw, and I always have the same workflow here. Go into the optics, make sure all of these are checked on. So we have the automatic distortion correction, fixed chromatic aberration, auto refringe. Then I go in the transform, but this is actually quite straight, so we don't have to worry about it. And then I jump into the sharpness and noise reduction. Now, I already removed most of the noise, so I know I don't have to add much. So I will just go gentle, somewhere around 10 on my luminosity. I will not use the color. And then I can move into the sharpness. Now, when it comes to sharpening and removing noise, I like to use the formula of 100. So imagine the number 100, and then you minus it with the amount from luminosity, and the result you get, you will enter into sharpening. So we have 100 minus 10 is 90. So that's how much I put into my sharpening. After that, because now I'm sharpening everything, including your smoke and everything, I go into the masking and really push the masking to make sure that I'm only adding the sharpening to the areas with the edge, texture, and detail on it. Now, I'm assuming that because we have added some sharpening earlier, I maybe can go a little bit lower, but that would be my formula there. Moving on to the light and black and white. Here, with the highlights, bring them down. Now, I know some photographers use the minus 100, but I actually like to do it more by eye. So minus 50 with the shadows, let's open them, but nothing crazy, maybe just somewhere around 30. And then I can move to the blacks and whites. Now, keep an eye on my histogram. With the blacks, I go down nicely to somewhere around maybe, let's have a look, 24. And with the whites up to somewhere around 21. Once I'm done with all of this, I move into my color where I can adjust my temperature. I would add a little bit of saturation, add extra vibrance, maybe somewhere around 20, 21. And then in the white balance, obviously we can use one of the presets here, or we can just do it manually. Let's just add a little bit of warmth and a little bit of tint. So I think somewhere around here. So after that, I'm pretty much done with the initial processing. Let me show you the before and after. And now I would move in and continue with the other tools. Now, quickly moving to some of the questions from the chat. You're asking if I prefer denoise and sharpen from Topaz rather than Luminar. No, actually, I found just like often, the thing is that each of these tools work better on different scenarios. So where on your standard DSLR, the noiseless RAW or noiseless AI and sharpen AI here in Luminar Neo generally does very good job. I found that with a drone, where probably because the sensor is a little bit smaller, or portrait photography, I prefer to use the Topaz. I think it's better and it does much better job. Also, like a low light situation in interior, because I like to take lots of pictures of cathedrals and churches, I also think for that the Topaz is better. So it's not necessarily for me a question of which is better. I like to have the wide variety of the tools and then use it for what works the best for what. Now, as much as I can, I like to do everything in the one application. So for example, if I'm working in Luminar Neo, I like to use it there. So this is the kind of downfall of the Topaz. Even with Lightroom, you kind of need to come out and come back. But still, these are the two scenarios where I use one or the other. Moving on, looking at the image, just to continue. For example, I will probably remove the cars. I mean, here in Luminar, we can try to use the erase tool for that. All you need to do is to select the car, for example. I mean, this would be a really quick edit because we don't have that much time, but I'm sure you will get the idea. So I would select that and then erase it. Obviously, there is the shadow you would still have to work on. Then I would remove this car here as well, maybe some of the lampposts, to really just focus on the train itself. What you could do is then add a little vignette to it. Again, choosing the train itself, so somewhere around here. And then I would move into the creative section itself. For this kind of feel, really depends on what I would like to create. If I'm create like a full of structure, and details, or if I'm looking more for romantic view. If I would be looking for the romantic view, I would be using something like mystical tool, just kind of increase it. That gives me a really nice glow and overall kind of like a fantasy, a romantic feel. You could add a little bit of matte tool to just make it all a little bit more cinematic. And if you would want, you could also use any of the LUTs here and see if any of them would just make the overall feel of the image a little bit nicer. For example, the Long Beach works very well. You don't have to use too much of it, but you would get something like this, and it would make everything just a little bit more cinematic, romantic, and storytelling. So let's say that I have started somewhere around here, and now I'm here, and I would take it much further. However, this gives you an idea on what you could do with the image. So there you have it. That was the edit of the train here. What I did was the basic development using the develop tool. Then I have added some vignette with the vignette tool. Then I add some glow and cinematic feel with the mystical and matte tool. And I finish it off with applying LUT on the top of it to merge everything together. Moving on, the next photographer, we have a Patrick. Patrick, let's have a look at your pictures. So we have this stunning capture here, which is absolutely epic. Great, great picture. Love the sky, love the leading line, love the building. Really, when I look at the image, it makes me think of your style. So well done there. Entrance to the underground, I'm assuming in Paris, again, looking great. Lovely blue hour capture with the glow and the lamppost, glow coming from the bottom, lots of details, a beautiful kind of blue hour with the glow capture. Again, very well done there. Now I have one picture from you here. So again, just in Luminar here, rather than looking at the images, because we already done them many times in past, let's have a look at your raw file. So we're going to bring it into edit module, and we're going to do the same like we did with the pictures before. We're going to run it first through basic development, if we get access to it. Let's have a look why we stuck. I wonder what format is your, let's have a look. Sony A7R Mark IV. That should open without any issues. If we do have an issue, I will quickly turn it to TNG and then we should be fine. So that for some reason isn't opening. So let's just quickly use different application. So it's just gonna take 1 second. We're gonna use Lightroom for this. And then we will be able to continue. There you go, be good there. So it loaded now, of course, as soon as I started to look at it. So let's close the Lightroom and let's continue in luminar. So let's just make it all bigger. And as I was saying, we're going to start with the basic development. For this, we're going to go into the Develop Pro. And again, it's a lots of pictures together. Brilliant. So for this, we're going to go into the optics very quickly. Just make sure that we have all of this on. And then we're going to go into the crop. In the crop, just like you did, we're going to probably use the 16:9, which is maybe a little tight. So we're just going to adjust this here with the freehand and see where we are. Of course, it doesn't want to work when I need it. And I wonder if we maybe going to have to leave this for next time, just to make sure that we continue. I wonder how big is the file, Patrick? Let's have a look quickly. Photos. 606 megabytes. Oh, how many pictures is it all together? Okay, we will probably have to move on because, or I could edit it in Lightroom if it needs to be. But anyway, Patrick, I'll go to come back to that. It's just quite big, the file. So when I'm doing the stream, the computer is struggling a little bit. So at the end, I will take it into Lightroom and we'll try the edit there, which brings us to Zdeněk. Moving on, Zdeněk, so the one raw file from you here, thank you very much for sharing it. Let's start by looking at the camera details. This is Canon 77D with a 24 to 105 millimeters. Moving on the camera settings, ISO 200, 59 millimeter f8, 1/200 of a second. So ISO 200, no problem there, as always, as low as possible. 59 millimeters, not too wide, which is good, giving us nice sense of size of the mountain at the back. 1/200 of a second. A really good shutter speed there as well. Looking at the overall scene is lovely. I really like the leading line guiding you through the overall image. Love the mountain at the back. Lots of texture there as well. Very diffuse light. So I wonder if we would go black and white here maybe, but we'll see. So in overall, it's a lovely capture, Zdeněk. Composition-wise, nice as well. The f8 still giving you nice level of details from the back to the front. So well done there as well. So let's jump to it. Bring it into edit module. First come first, let's crop it. Again, you know I like to use the 16:9, maybe even a little tighter, somewhere around here. And once I'm happy, I just hit enter. So that will crop it nicely for us. Then into the Develop Pro. Again, optics, making sure that they are all on. In a transform, I don't think we need to adjust it at all. Noise reduction, let's zoom in at least to 100%. I don't see too much of a noise, so let's not worry about it. Let's just add 20. Then with the sharpness, again, we're using the rule of 100. So 100, the number 100 minus the luminosity, which is 20, equals to 80. So on sharpening, we're going to put 80. And then with our masking, again, we want to make sure that we only sharpening the areas with the textures and details. And for that, the masking usually, for me, works somewhere around 70 or 75. So that's the noise reduction sharpening. After that, blacks and white and light. So highlights down, and that way we get some nice texture back in the sky. We don't want to overdo it, but I think just somewhere around -75 works well. Open the shadow. So let's go somewhere around 25, and we good. Now, looking at our histogram, we can also hit J to see the clipping mask. We can now adjust our black. So let's make it darker. I think somewhere around here. And with the whites, maybe just somewhere around here. After that, we can come to the light, add some additional contrast and exposure. I'm even thinking to maybe make it a little bit darker, not too much, just maybe like -0.12. Once we're done with this, we only have the color to adjust. I I thought first we're gonna turn it to black and white, but I actually like it here. I think it's kind of moody capture. Reason being that we also get some nice clouds and it kind of adds nice texture there. So I would leave it. I would maybe make it even a little bit cooler, just somewhere around here. And with the tint, mm, I don't think we need to really touch the tint. I think that works quite well. With the saturation, I would bring it down a little bit and just add a little bit of vibrance until we recover some of the colors, at least some of the green color. So that's the basic development. Now we could do some additional sharpening, remove noise with the extensions if we want to, but I think to start with, this is good. After this, I would definitely add some vignette, focusing on a center of the road, bring the minus down and just do something like this. So that way we add attention where we want, which is the path and the mountain. Um, After that, we can go into the details, increase the small details around 10 and medium details around 6. That way we get some of the details back on the mountain as well as the trees. So this would be my basic setup to start with. I have done the development, using the tools in the develop tool. I have add some details back with the details, and I had add some vignette just to bring attention towards the center. After that, we can move into the creative section where we can do lots of different things. I think one thing that would work very well on this image is the match tool. So we can increase the amount with extra fade just to keep the same mood. The dramatic tool would work very well too, just to create more of kind of dramatic feel. We can even remove more of the saturation or not, maybe more local contrast. That would work very well too as well. Let's have a look before and after. And what we could try to do, this is just an idea, is to go into the atmosphere AI, turn it into layer fog, and actually add some fog to the image with some extra depth. Let's see where it's going to come from, somewhere around here, or maybe haze, which also works in this case. Actually, I think layered fog works better. Not too much of it, maybe just somewhere around here, but then it kind of matches it together with the two. So to top it off, what we can do is to go all the way to the bottom into the professional section, use the super contrast and add some mid-tone contrast where we're going to bring some of the colors back. So that's about it. This is what I would do with the image to make it a little bit more dramatic. Let's have a look at the before and after. And that would be my approach to it. Now, again, you could turn it to black and white if you would want to. That would be interesting too. But I think for us, we don't have to do that. I think this is a good start. After that, I would go into it with more local adjustments. I would make the mountain to stand up more. I would probably highlight more the road, darkening some other parts of the image, which we can probably still do. So let's go into the develop tool, light, minus exposure, and masking and linear gradient, and just paint it from here. So something like this, which will create nice gradient from the bottom. And that way we close the image a little bit as well. So there you have it, Zdeněk. This is how I would kind of take it. This is my thought process, the basic development, then take care of the sharpness, vignette, and then I move into the creative tools where it really depends of what feel I would like the image to get. Is it this kind of dramatic, detail, structure feel like you see here, or would it be more like a black and white super contrastic feel, or would it be very kind of fantasy pastel color feel? So I would just use different set of tools for each one of them. But either way, I think this is quite nice, quite dramatic, and I think works quite well. So thank you so much for sharing the image with us. It was a pleasure to look at it, work on it, and I hope to see more images from you next week. Which brings us to Evgeny. Evgeny, I have 3 images from you. One of them is the raw file. Now I had a look at the raw file, and actually I'm not going to work on it because it's quite blurry. I tried to send it through different sharpening processors, and it's just not possible to do anything with it. So I'm sorry, I can't edit that image for you. However, we have two more images to kind of talk about, so let's do that. And starting with the leaves, this is with Pentax 100D Super. From the camera settings, ISO 200, 190 millimeters, and f8 1/500 of a second. It's a lovely capture. I really like the backlight. I think that works very nicely. Details are really nice. The camera setting is spot on with 190 millimeters, giving you this really nice, soft, blurry background, which creates just a really nice feel. It almost looks like a bokeh, and it works very well here. So in overall, it's a lovely picture, lovely level of details, and technically, it's very well done. Composition-wise, obviously, the message is straight. I would maybe crop it a little bit differently. Let's have a look. Maybe just something more like this. I would kind of avoid the leaves on the top and focus more on the main subject. If I would be really keen on the picture, I would maybe even take time and remove this leaf here to really just focus on what I'm trying to show. So to remove some of the distraction and focus on the main subject. Other than that, lovely. I really like the details with the little spider webs. It's very, very pretty. It really brings autumn feel, and when you look at it, it has an immediate message. So well done there. Now talking about the second image here, again, same camera, same lens, a little bit different setting. ISO 400, you can a little bit see the noise specifically at the end, so something to keep an eye on. 190 millimeters on lens, so really punched in with f11 and 1/250th of a second. So 1/250th of a second gives you a sharpness on the people. However, with the ISO 400, you can really see lots of noise on this image. So that's something to keep an eye on, but it's probably connected also with the camera you have. Now, composition wise, it's a lovely idea. You have this nice depth, you have a person there, which helps us with the scale. You have the nice light from the side. It's a little bit harsh with the contrast between the light and shadows, but I think it all works quite well. It's a lovely idea. Just really the noise, almost remove the details. When I zoom in and look there, you can see how super pixelated it is, and it's just a little bit of a shame. Also a shame that you can see some of the cars. I would just keep the message clear. In ideal world, you would have just one person, little bit closer, standing somewhere here, less noise, and that would be it. When it comes to post-processing, not much to do here. You could do stronger vignette with the focus on the person and maybe close it even a little bit more. You could add extra warmth with, golden hour slider here in Luminar Neo, or with extra warmth on your white balance, and take it from there. Let's give a look again before and after, and that's what I would do with this image. So the first image, great, lovely, full of details, no noise, maybe just different cropping. On the second image, more focus on the noise. This is where I would be just a bit more careful. And other than that, it's also very nice. So those are the photographers, but as I promised, Patrick, let's have a look at your image. Let's see. If I manage to move it into Lightroom, we're still gonna do it now. So I will open my Lightroom Classic. I'm not sure how well it's gonna work with the live streaming, but we will try, Patrick. Don't worry. As I promised, we will give it a go. So we can close Luminar Neo for the time being. We will need your file here. Let's bring it straight in. And I'm just gonna add it. Add to collection, Patrick. And there we go, just the one image. We give it a moment to import it. And then once that's done, we can now move it into develop mode. Once we there, it's gonna take a second, and then hopefully we can start. So looking at it, you have done some cropping to it already. That's great. So I can see that it's all good. And after that, we just gonna start. Let's make this all nice and big. We're just gonna start from the basic panel here. So again, highlights, not completely down. I'm not a big fan of the -100 +100, but let's say with the highlights somewhere around here, and with the shadows around here. But the first thing I forgot to do is to go into my lens correction and make sure that is all on, and it looks like yes. And with the transform, do we need the auto? But everything looks straight anyway, but let's use it. Okay, so we done lens correction, and then we make sure that everything is straight with the transform tool. After that, back to basics, adjusted the highlights. We're gonna open the shadows even more, and now we're gonna hold Alt option on our keyboard, increase the white slider until we start to see some white, so we can see the sun here, and then bring down the blacks somewhere around here. After that, adjust the exposure, maybe just touch extra, and little bit of contrast. After this, I would go ahead and adjust my white balance. Now, obviously, we have a different options here. Let's see what auto gives us. Not crazy about that. Daylight, a little bit too blue for me, but we can start from there. Let's just add a little bit of warmth. What I like on using the daylight is that actually the overall image is a little bit cooler, a little bit more blue, and then we get more contrast with the warmth. So somewhere around here, I would definitely add some magenta to it, somewhere around here, and we all good here. After that, with the texture and clarity, let's just zoom in. Maybe we could add a little bit of texture and bring down the clarity just to make it more natural. Definitely add a little bit of overall vibrance, and then I would leave it there. What else we could do? Let's just hide this and continue. So we're done with the basic part, and now we can move into the details, which I'm using a similar method here. Just add sharpening around 20, because I know on my noise reduction, I will go probably about 15. So it's the same idea as in Luminar. You have a number 100, minus luminance, which is 15. So then 85 on sharpening, and then masking again, hold Alt or Option and see what you sharpen, so you can see that somewhere around 70 is the right number. So this is the basic development. Patrick, you do your lens correction, transform, details, noise reduction, then the basic development, and pretty much you are done. Now we would continue more with the local adjustments. So let's go in the effect where I would now add vignette, and then I would go and use, for example, radial gradient, which I would place in this area and add a little bit of extra glow, like extra warmth and extra glow there with minus clarity. So again, let's have a look at the before and after. So a little bit of extra glow there. After that, we can add another new mask and another gradient, and maybe add it to the front of the house here. So something like this. And this time, I think we're just gonna add a little bit of extra exposure. Just make it a little bit brighter. So somewhere around here, more probably here. Not too much, because obviously there is no source of light behind us to make this part brighter. However, just a little bit, just to add a little bit of extra attention to that part. Maybe even with a little bit of extra temperature. We could continue like that. This is kind of just a basic edit. Another thing I would keep an eye on is the lens. You can see some of the dust in your sky here. So when I jump out of the masking, now when I'm looking at it, let's see if we can just zoom in. You can see it here, and you can see it here and here and here. So you would take care of that with your little tool here. Again, there is one here and one here. For this, for example, Luminar Neo is great because you press one button and it removes it for you. But that's one thing I would probably keep an eye on, making sure that these are away. Obviously, looking at the image, it's a great quality, lovely level of details, lovely capture. Let's just jump out of this. I really like the fact that there is not too many cars there. You can just see them there. Maybe if I would really want to work on this image, I would take it in a Photoshop, try to remove some of these people. Then one thing in overall composition for the image is that I would probably like a little bit more space at the bottom, just to kind of make it a little bit bigger. I think it's just a touch too tight for me, but that's just more artistic part than anything else. So in overall, it's a lovely picture. This is what I would do with it to start with, and then to do the full edit, including Photoshop, it would take much longer. So for today, Patrick, thank you so much. You saw I tried. I'm sorry that we had a little bit of technical difficulty, mostly created by the fact that it's a big file. Using it with a live stream and Luminar Neo is just a little bit too much, but we tried. So folks, thank you so much for sharing your images with me. It was a pleasure to review them for you. It was a pleasure to work on them. We tried something a little bit different. Next week we are back to usual reviews, where we're gonna again focus on the technical, artistic, and photo editing part of your images. If any one of you wants to join us in the future, make sure you check out our membership, Clever Photographer Plus, on our website, cleverphotographer.com. And until next week, folks, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody on the chat. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Zdeněk. And thank you, all of you, for joining me. And thank you for watching the replay. Have a lovely evening. Best greeting from United Kingdom. And I will see you all next week.